Yeah, I come from men that stand. I'm in the field and you just sit in the stands. Take that bass out your voice. If you ain't got no gun in your hand, I do what I want. And you don't even do what you can, you do what you told. I got no love for my foes that can mimic my delivery and copy my prose. But what they can't comprehend is how I stick to this code. It's either in you or not. It's not the kicks and the clothes. They ain't cut from the same cloth, can't come from the same loom. Fit in similar shapes or even sit in the same room. Confusing authenticity with part of the costume. I'm teaching gifted children, you can't come in this classroom.
Dare to struggle, dare to win.
Welcome back to Dare to Struggle, Dare to Win, episode 37. Geechee and Miss Cherie Danielle.
Yeah.
¿Qué pasó?
Hey.
¿Qué pasó? You don't speak Spanish. You look like you Spanish. So I ain't heard no of you that speak Spanish today.
No, they used to always come up speaking in Spanish to me when I lived in the Heights, and I'm like, I didn't even take Spanish in high school, so I'm really bad with Spanish. I took French because my name is French, so I was like, I want to take French.
Chatty. Well, listen, Yusef is playing Hickey today, so he ain't here with us.
It's hooky, ain't it? You said hickey.
Which one is it? Is it Hickey?
It's hooky. Hickey when you stuck on the neck. Your mind is somewhere else, clearly.
No, I always thought it was Hickey. I really didn't know it was Hooky.
Definitely hooky.
You know, we're in Charleston. We don't be pronouncing shit right anyway. Don't get mad. Yo, welcome to Dare to Struggle, Dare to Win, where we're going to bring y'all some Black radical politics from CMB's vantage point. And we are here on Black Liberation Media with all the other dope shows. And know that most people in this chat is hella politicized, got it all figured out. But we need you to copy and share the link and share it with somebody who probably needs some more politics. But I think you actually need to share with everybody because the guest that we got coming up is going to be talking about a brother that the state is trying to murder. One of these bullshit ass states is trying to murder. And the story is so heartbreaking. And I think you need to share this link and invite them into this conversation so that we could, in this late hour, see if we can stop these buckers from killing another one of our people. So, yeah, I was almost crying earlier today when I was talking to the sister. God damn, it's frustrating. But yeah, how you feeling? What you got going on?
Nothing much. Just trying to keep busy. I'm unemployed now, so I'm like trying to figure out my life and stuff. Trying to figure out my next move, get myself situated. Sorry, I keep looking down. I'm trying to share this with my mom because I forgot. She was like, "Make sure you haven't been sharing the podcast with me." So I'm like, make sure I share it with her. But yeah, just trying to figure it all out. Unfortunately, I ain't got no savings because I be shopping. So just trying to figure out
You ain't
what to do next.
So you ain't listening to none of them financial literacy courses?
Oh no. Dang, that's when I was like, maybe the financial literacy. Maybe I was too judgmental.
Damn.
No, you want to know what's funny? When I was applying for the unemployment, right? I'm scrolling on the unemployment page, which is hella confusing, right? And I feel like they make it confusing on purpose. Like it take you to 3 different places. I was confused on if I even filled it out in the first place, and I had to go back. I'm scrolling through stuff, and they got something. They're like financial literacy classes or whatever under the unemployment.
Can you? Do you got a link? Can you show us? Or can you?
It's when I tell you it's so confusing. I honestly I could bring it next week because it's so confusing.
Yeah.
It's like I went back and forth between like 3-5 different pages because it's like one you gotta register, another one you gotta actually make your claim, and then you gotta make some sort of there's like this bootleg, very old-fashioned looking page that Georgia has where you have to act like it's a job page or whatever, a job board, and it's so old-fashioned looking. It's like, why would I even use this when I use LinkedIn? But it's just it just is weird. And I'm just like, so do I have to submit for jobs on this in order to show that I'm submitting for jobs? It's very confusing, but they definitely had a whole section and I did not click on it. I'm like, now I need financial literacy to manage my last couple of $100.
I mean, I think that's what austerity and all the other bullshit is about, where you could be going into a financial crisis or another famine, and they will still find ways to be like, oh well, is this really your fault or is it our fault? And maybe you should be doing something differently. So I actually would love to see that link or see those things because
We'll see. I mean, I'll be checking it out. I gotta wait a few days, see if I get approved. Then I was like trying to track down my tax refund that I never got back. So I'm like waiting on the phone for hours. I finally get someone, we get disconnected. I'm like, oh my gosh. Then I finally figured out like what happened with my tax refund, how they needed me to, they sent me something in the mail that I guess I don't know where it is, but I was supposed to call a number on there and prove my identity. And they're like, once you do that, then you get your taxes back in like 9 weeks. I'm like, okay, thanks. Y'all are a lot of help.
it's crazy. Yo, so I'm gonna do it. I'm sorry. Or unless you have another topic on light, because I kind of want to talk about the post, and I shared it with you and shared it with a few people.
Oh yeah, I didn't get to read through it, but we can
which
talk
is
about
perfectly fine. So again, unfortunately, and maybe some other things, I just have like a few people, maybe 2, 3, 4 people, and we already talked about one of the persons, but I have people I literally grew up with, spend time with as a kid, sleepovers, cousins, all this stuff, who are hella famous at this point, right? And I don't want to talk about the other folks, but one of them is a brother I grew up with. We're like cousins. His cousin, his actual cousin, is like, well, my best friend who was a cousin. And now he's like this really famous boxing coach. And he not only coached Gervonta Davis a little bit, but he's coaching like celebrities. So there's a bunch of celebrities will come and like train with him in Georgia, right? Even the on-site dude, the dude who they be saying looked like a turtle, and he's always fighting, and he's like, "You're not qualified, honey," or something like that. Are you familiar with that dude?
I feel like that sounds familiar.
He's like a short person, and he's like a plumber, and he started with the pop the balloons, and he was like, "You're not qualified."
Oh wow!
But anyway,
I probably have seen him. But I know who Gervonta Davis is.
Tank,
I
I know
know
you know
about
Tank.
that. I was like, I know about him. He's a fighter, right?
Yeah. So what happened was this now viral brother had a post, and on the post he asked this question. Let me see if I can get to it. He asked this question about is in what way is slavery hindering you right now in 2025? And one of my other homeboy I grew up with, he answered none. And then this is going to be the type of chat that there's a lot of wild shit that's going to be said. And I was able to, I guess it's pretty long, so I ain't going to read it, but I was able to lay out kind of how I would respond to it. And again, not to put people business in the street, but my one of my other homeboys who didn't make the post, who commented and said none, I was like, matter of fact, I'm sorry, I'm gonna go and find those clarifying questions. I asked him a few clarifying questions, and he was like, well, I don't want to answer that clarifying question publicly. I'll do it inbox. And I was like, nah, keep the conversation here. And he was like, nah, I don't want to be disrespectful to the man, his post. And I was like, well, bro, it's a public post. You won't be disrespectful. But I do now understand why he needed, because it was like a vulnerable moment for the brother. And he was able to be like, you know what, you're right. I didn't really think about that. And then we had another conversation. But whenever he said it, where's the clarifying question? Yeah. A few of the clarifying questions says, what would you say the legacy of African Black enslavement is or was in this country? Number 2 was, when do you think all restrictions ended for Black African people in the U.S.? Like, give me a date, a time period, or a law or something to qualify your answer, please. And then the last one was, how do you understand legality today? How do you feel about people who get to define what is legal and illegal for you? And again, as I said, those questions, even some of his answers kind of highlight the contradictions of what him even saying none. And then, anyway, so I'm curious what you thought. And I'll put a link to this public discussion I think Leah's talking about. But go ahead. What kind of thoughts came
I
up?
think that is a constant conversation that I think I've heard amongst my years on this earth of people. And I feel like I've always known, regardless of how radical or not radical, I've always known that slavery was still impacting me. So I'm just always very confused on even the most liberal person, as I very much was very liberal at one point in my life, how you just feel like slavery just no longer impacts you. Like that just never, I probably said a lot of crazy stuff back in the day, but that was just never something that crossed my mind of like, nah. And I think maybe it's because I had parents that were like, grew up during the civil rights era. I just always felt like it's not these things that we read about in school are not far away. And that was at least the notion that I at least had, is like, this wasn't that long ago, whether I had the politics surrounding it or not. I just was like, no, we're definitely still affected. But somebody asked me that one time in an argument, and I think this was years ago, probably a year after I left acting school, and I got in like a Facebook debate with somebody, because I was saying, I feel like, oh, I know what it was. There was a white kid doing blackface. And I was like, I made a post being like, this is not right. And I had a bunch of people I went to acting school with, or really one main guy I remember that went to acting school with me, trying to justify, be like, because he was trying to be MLK. It was like a white kid trying to be MLK. He got in trouble for doing blackface. And I was like, this is still wrong or whatever. Like, I don't understand. It's never an excuse to do blackface. And then, then he just started going back and forth with me. Then he eventually asked, like, okay, so how does the civil rights or slavery impact you? How does it still affect you? And this is literally when I just got dismissed from acting school, when I know it was a racist institution. And I know my experience at that school was drastically different from the other kids, the other white kids. And every black kid got denied for year 2 at that school and had to end up appealing. So I'm just like, for him to say like, oh, well, how is like, I'm just like, you don't even understand. And this is like, and he was a Mexican brother too. And he got not asked back from the school either, but he genuinely thought that, maybe it was because he didn't do what he was supposed to do. And I'm just like, you don't see that they only like move up one black person to the next level or whatever. Like, but that was just an interesting, but that just brought me back to that moment because it happened on Facebook as well. But people really flip things around and ask that question. I'm just always blown away. I think it's definitely a part of the Obamaism of it all. I think that era really started because people were saying a lot of things like that. When Obama became president, it's like there's no more excuses now. And like, I just remember being in school that there was kids just be like, there was a girl that made this like, we used to have this thing called school news, and this was this girl that made like this little report speaking on how happy we were to have President Obama, but we still have further to go. And I remember there was these white kids after class like, yeah, that was cute, but I don't get what she mean by we still have further to go. Like they were almost like, what more do you want? Just kind of like, yikes. But yeah. Sorry for that.
Yeah, no, I think one of the things, y'all can come in. One of the things, I had some of my brothers here from Morehouse. One of the things that few of the things, there was just so much that he was actually saying in our one-on-one chat that kind of like was evidence of him really not hearing what I was saying. So for instance, when I asked, and again, I'm not gonna share all of it, but when I said, what would you say the legacy of African Black enslavement is or was in this country? And he says, the legacy of slavery is America. The legacy of slavery is America. Yesterday, tomorrow, and the future will. So if you're saying the legacy is America, and as you as an American Black person, African Black person in America speaking English, like and that's what James said the clapback was good, but that was my first thing. Like, bro, y'all arguing on white people's internet in English as Africans and saying slavery has no hindrance on you right now.
I think it's the more, and I know you, I'm trying not to be online as much, but even when I try to scroll past the FBA stuff, and the FBA stuff is sneaking itself into real life, like let that be known too. But I just think these FBA talking points where it's like when you talk to these FBA people and the people that are, I guess, very vulnerable to FBA politics, they very much view slavery as something that built America, but they don't look at it as this exploitative, thing that capitalism was built upon. They don't view it in like they view it with a very prideful way. We contributed to this thing, and we're the reason why America's so great. Anytime, even if I'm on an FBA like live and just kind of scrolling by really quickly on TikTok, there's always at least one person that's going to be like, the reason why everybody wants to come here to America is because of us. That's the reason why they're leaving where they at, because we made America great. We they even speak on like homophobia in other countries and racism in other countries, and they all have this disillusion that Black Americans fought so hard in America to make things so much better, and that there's this deep sense of pride that just is very like it's just very misused, because it just allows them to be completely in denial of like the current situation, and they think the reason that instead of America being the cops of the world, they just think it's because Black Americans helped make America so great, and that's why immigrants want to be here, and that's why America's so great, and we have all these things, and they very much feel a part of it and a sense of pride of it, where they'll tell you slavery happened and it was bad or whatever, but it's a twisted kind of ideology, but yeah.
Yeah, so listen, we're gonna take a quick break and bring our sister up and start the conversation. So stay tuned. We'll be right back. Yeah.
I'm throwing copper at the coppers, but I'm shaking like Morocco. Say my prayers with the pistol, serve the sinners with the chopper. All my buddies got it from scratch. My house had Betty Crocker. His mama owned D. He ain't even get no shot up. Profit is invisible. Profit come from product. He thinking buffet. He can't comprehend no potluck. God bless the child with his own powder to rock.
Welcome back. Dare to Struggle, Dare to Win, episode 37. Joia?
Yes.
Right. I was kind of get you off mute. Miss Joia Thornton, could you please introduce yourself to the people who don't know you? I'm one of the hardest working women in this country, along with my sister ML. How you feeling?
Hi, family. How you guys doing? My name is Joia. For those of you who don't know me, I am a lobbyist. I am a policy analyst. And I'm the founder of a policy organization by the name of the Faith Leaders of Color Coalition, or FLOC. This is a group that engages Black and Indigenous faith leaders in work around confronting, interrogating the capital punishment system, or as we call it, the death system in America. So I'm just really excited to be with you guys, because this is a sense of urgency that Geechee, you have me on. Cherie, is that your name as well? I'm so glad to be a part of this panel. So thank you.
We thank you for coming, and kind of a short notice, but very important. Can you tell us about this another opportunity of these crazy state folks trying to murder our folks? Could you please tell us about why you're here, and then maybe the campaign or the urgency that we need people to be engaged about?
Sure. So right now we are here and time is of the essence. I lead national advocacy strategies for several death penalty cases, stop execution campaigns. But I have for 2 years been on a case, a young man by the name of Tremane Wood. I'm so glad that you have his background there so people can actually see his face. He's a real person. We're not just organizing to organize, but we're organizing around real people and around real families. Just a roundabout kind of explanation of the case. Tremane Wood is about to be executed by the state of Oklahoma in less than a couple of hours. And thank you for having that toolkit, because even though we're just hours away, there's still things that people can do to save his life. What happened was Tremane Wood back in 2001 was involved in a robbery gone wrong that was planned by his older brother named Jake Wood. Tremane blindly followed Jake. I always say that's the little homie, big homie conversation. It's that type of scenario where your big homie says, come and participate in this. I know we can make some money. And Tremane assumes all responsibility for participating in a planned robbery, but no responsibility when it comes to taking someone's life. His brother Jake actually admitted shortly after the crime that he was the one that actually stabbed the man who lost his life, the victim Ronnie Whiff. There was another victim that survived. So these were two men from Montana who were on a trip in Oklahoma, and they were robbed. They were set up by Tremane's girlfriend and his girlfriend's friend, and that's what happened. Tremane and his brother were the ones that actually robbed him. So getting back to the facts of the case, Tremane wasn't the person who actually stabbed the individual who lost his life, which would be the person who committed the murder. But what Tremane was accused of and convicted for was a law called felony murder. And for those of you who do not know what felony murder, and Oklahoma has one of the strictest felony murder laws, is you didn't have to actually kill someone, but you had to be there, involved in some way. Your property could have been used, so your car. You actually can be charged with murder, and prosecutors can seek the death penalty for felony murder in this particular case, and that's absolutely what they did. In fact, the three other individuals got life, got a couple of time, but he was the only one that got the death penalty because he had poor legal counsel. And I want your audience to really lean into that and let that wash over you. I know that some of us don't have access to private attorneys. That is a real thing. You don't retain them until you need them. But he had an attorney that only billed 2 hours of preparation when it came to Tremane's death penalty case. In fact, later on in life, he wrote him a postcard and said, "Sorry, I didn't represent you appropriately." His brother had access, because of the things that he had been involved in the streets, to private attorneys that fought on his behalf. And he got life. And the other two young ladies who were involved, they got time here and time there, but it was not as harsh as the two Black men who were involved in this crime, especially Tremane. Felony murder. I actually visited with him, Geechee and Cherie, on yesterday. And he said, as a 20-year-old, your brain's not even formed yet. That's what happened, the age he was when this crime happened. He said he thought he would get about 10 years, 15 years, first-time violent offender. He had no idea about felony murder in his state. And I urge folks, get to know the laws of the land in your jurisdiction. Know these laws before these laws are applied to you, justly or unjustly. So this is what happens in Tremane's case. I was involved during the appellate process, of course, because I was in high school in 2001, and I don't know, many of you guys were as well, or in college. But during his appellate process is when he's had the strongest allies and representation. His attorney, Amanda Bass, is wonderful. His investigator, Lamont Williams, wonderful. And I just want folks to know that Tremane is innocent, and we do not want Oklahoma to kill him by lethal injection tomorrow morning.
Okay, that's a lot. Just quick question. So what happened with the brother? What ended up happening with him? Was he charged with the death penalty as well, or?
No, the brother, since he had access to private attorneys and attorneys that represented him appropriately and billed way more than 2 hours when it came to his case, he got life without parole. Unfortunately, he did commit suicide a couple of years back because his brother, being charged with the death penalty and ultimately convicted the death penalty and sentenced to that crime, it weighed heavily on him as the big brother. He felt that he led his brother into the death penalty. So he is unfortunately not with us anymore.
Man. You can go, Geechee. Sorry, I just need to.
Yeah, this case is wild. This case is wild, and I want folks to understand that when folks are teenagers, they say the brain is not fully formed until you're about 23. We do crazy things like that. And thank God that I had access to resources and mentors and spiritual coverings that really gave me that reasoning, even at that age, to say, you know what, I'm not going to go and do some of those things. And even if you did, even if you're out there and you were involved and you didn't get caught, that's even more of the reason to exercise and extend that empathy to Tremane.
So, and this also sound like few of the cases that even KJ, when his brother was pretty much discarded and I would say slaughtered by a cop at a young age. But I'm wondering if you can kind of share. So I know there was a lot of mobilization action there in November. Like what is happening right now there? Like what are people doing? And then what can people who are watching this do? I know a lot of times folks will be like, oh, ain't no use, and what's one thing we're gonna do? Like, we'd love for you to share some of that.
First of all, I want you all to know that I'm a real person. So I want you to hold me close in your heart, because when I say I visited with Tremane yesterday through the plexiglass and was able to look him eyeball to eyeball and really feel his energy, hold myself and others that are very close to this case, meaning they are proximate to Tremane, like his mother, Linda Wood, his girlfriend, Leslie, his nieces, and his brother that is surviving, Andre Wood. Hold them very close to your hearts. There are things that you can do if you are not grounded in Oklahoma. You can share the social media images. You can call Governor Stitt if you are connected to influencers that could just say a 30-second grant clemency to Tremane. Because just on last week, we received a victory. Tremane went before the Parole and Pardon Board of Oklahoma, and they heard his case. They heard the facts of the case from the beginning to the end. And the Parole and Pardon Board, which is 5 members appointed by the governor of Oklahoma, recommended clemency for Tremane. In fact, they said that the trial was an embarrassment because the attorney only billed 2 hours, and not just that, the jury wasn't given clear instructions on what he was being sentenced for. So we have to question those things when it comes to our criminal legal system. It started at the trial and even before the trial. So those are the things that I want people to think about. Even if you agree with the death penalty, is it fair? Is it fair that his attorney not only billed 2 hours, but he was struggling with alcoholism? And that's something that he openly admitted to. So attorneys, they don't always have it together. So that's another reason to have, I always say, a community defense fund. That's something that we can start. We can pour money into. And then also I just see, Ronnie Whiff's family and the surviving victim, they don't want this execution. They have said this does not bring their loved one back. It offers them no solace. So with that argument, what about the victims? The victims have openly said, we don't want the death penalty. We don't want Tremane to be killed. So those are some of the things you can do. If you're grounded in Oklahoma, there is a prayer vigil tonight. If you're on Central Time, you have 2 hours to get there. It starts at 7:30. If you want to attend that prayer vigil at OKC First Church in Oklahoma, Pastor John Middendorf, you can attend that. There will be a vigil tomorrow at 8 a.m. at McAllister State Penitentiary. He's set to be executed at 10 a.m. What we're waiting on is 2 things, right? We have 2 paths. There was a petition of stay that was filed before the Supreme Court. So we're waiting on them to answer that. And that can provide us a little bit more time. We're also waiting on Governor Stitt to make his final decision whether he wants to agree with the Parole and Pardon Board or whether he wants to go forth with the execution.
So when it comes to I'm sorry, I'm just trying to find the quote. This is really
good. No, that's okay.
When it comes to the work that I guess you do overall, like when it comes to like tomorrow, I'm just curious about like even steps I guess even after tomorrow when it comes to this situation to like stop more cases like this from happening? Like, is there anything that we can do, you know, people that aren't in Oklahoma, or, you know, I was just curious to get involved.
Sure. So I'm in Atlanta, and my organization is national. What I do is mobilize our community of more than 700 clergy of multi faiths to get activated when it comes to the death penalty system. The death penalty is our pain point in the criminal legal system. We have to address death. Of course, we want to interrogate the juvenile justice. We want to interrogate mandatory minimums. We want to interrogate excessive sentencing, but we have to talk about the death penalty. The same states that held on to the most insidious forms of lynching are the same states that are carrying out the death penalty in the most heinous ways when it comes to jury selection, when it comes to all white DAs, AGs, and prosecutors in the South. It sounds a little familiar to white mob violence when it came to lynching. When I went to McAllister, and they call it Big Mac, it was called Big Mac. It had a sign that said, "Welcome to the rodeo, the only rodeo behind prison walls." And I did some digging and found out that that particular prison that Tremane lives at was a prison that participated in rodeo activities for prisoners. So it was entertainment for the community to see prisoners on bulls and doing different activities. That's very akin to our country's history of racial terror violence with lynching, where cotton candy would be sold, where postcards would be given out at a later date. And I'm really trying to give folks a visual of what's going on with our death penalty system and how it is so similar. And people want to yell, what about the people that are guilty? They will kill one Dylan Roof, the person who was accused of the Greenwood killing. He carried it out. He wasn't accused. He carried it out. To kill 6 or 7 innocent Black men on death row for felony murder, or just innocent, period, when it comes to their trials and the racial violence and implications that were involved in their trial. So I really want people to understand that the death penalty is not reserved for the worst of the worst. To deter crime, there have been 200 people exonerated from death row. So what number makes it uncomfortable for you?
Yeah, it's crazy. Me and Geechee were literally just talking about how slavery still is impacting us today and how some people are in denial of that. And the prison system and the death penalty are very much another very huge thing that you can see, you know, is very closely tied. When you mentioned lynching and how it's basically the modern day lynching is just like, is just very, you know, key. I just wanted to bring that up.
So I always talk about this quote from Derek Bell, and I want you to kind of go more on as you bring up what Dylan Roof did in Charleston, my hometown, at Mother Emanuel, and the policies that are there in terms of. So again, the Derek Bell quote that says, "If this nation's policies toward Black folks were revised to require weekly random roundups of several hundred Black folks who are then taken to a secluded place and shot, that policy would be more dramatic, but hardly different in results than the policies now in effect, which most of us feel powerless to change." So yeah, I would love for you to, again, talk about maybe some of the policies and how policies advocate for this constant murder, and then maybe the overarching theme of you saying, like, what is it there for? Like, what is it doing to Black people? What is it saying to Black people? What is it saying about how this people who control the system says or feel about Black people?
I'm so glad you brought up that quote because I'm a policy person. To date, I have changed 4 laws when it comes to our death penalty system in 3 different states. So it's super important, again, like I mentioned at the beginning of my comments, that you know and you understand the laws of the land, that you understand what laws are hackneyed, meaning old, you don't need them anymore. what laws have racism baked into them. One victory that I'm super proud of is a bill that we passed in Georgia this past spring, and the bill was HB 123. And what this bill did was lower the standard of proof for an attorney and individual to prove that they have intellectual disabilities, or as it was formerly called, mental retardation. So, according to 2002 Atkins versus Virginia, the Supreme Court ruled that you cannot execute someone with intellectual disabilities. That is cruel and that is inhumane, and it violates the Eighth Amendment. But like most of our good old boy Southern states do, they hurried trying to find loopholes within that particular Supreme Court ruling, which is why we still have states that are executing people with intellectual disabilities today. Sister Helen Prejean, she wrote the book Dead Man Walking about her time spent with people on death row, a mentor of mine. And she says that in order to end the death penalty, you have to stop its use. We understand that we won't be able to get a repeal bill immediately in states like Georgia, Mississippi, and Alabama. But what we're trying to do is chip away at the block with different laws like HB 123, severe mental illness laws, laws challenging lethal injection and the cocktail of drugs. And I'm just looking at the press conference, seeing all of the faces of the people that I work with, like Demetrius Minor. Demetrius Minor is a conservatives concern national manager. So he talks to conservatives in the state about things like being pro-life or the whole life. Like, if you're pro-life, what does that mean? If you're pro-life, but you're also pro-death, that doesn't go hand in hand. But to get back to what I was saying about policy, what we're trying to do now as a lobbyist and a strategist is start addressing the laws in states that will chip away at the death penalty. We need legislative support when it comes to those laws. Geechee, when I share with you bill number SB 102 will help us eliminate this system. Those are things that we need you to support, and we need you to come to the Capitol with us and lobby, whether it be in Georgia, Mississippi, or any other executing state. I was responsible also for getting the organizing efforts together with so many others in Virginia. In 2021, we did repeal the death penalty. And that's the first former Confederate state to repeal the death penalty. So that was huge for us. We didn't even think that it would happen because we had been doing so many organizing efforts for so many years. So you really don't know how the climate will change for things like that. So that's what we're trying to do. We're trying to till the soil. We're trying to get folks educated so they understand the death penalty in their states and know that it's not just reserved for the worst of the worst, but it's really a systemic issue that has a lot of implicit bias.
I'm just curious of your personal thoughts when it comes to like the rise of cop cities. And I know we have, the cop city here in Atlanta that's, being built. I'm just curious about like your personal, do you feel like the work that you do is going to help like counteract some of the things that we'll be trying to push forward, when it comes to this cop city stuff? And then question two, I just was curious, do you identify as an abolitionist, or is that like a term that, you don't use, or and if you do or don't, just why not?
Oh, thank you so much, Cherie. Those are some great questions. So uniquely, when I came from, so I'm originally from Memphis, everybody. Do we have any Memphians out there? But when I came from, when I came from Memphis, I was coming off of organizing and creating an organization called Decarcerate Memphis. And Decarcerate Memphis was responsible for resisting against Operation Relentless Pursuit and Operation Legend that Trump deployed out different military officials or militarized police departments when it came to the uprising and the protests when it regards to George Floyd, Breonna Taylor, Ahmaud Arbery, and others. So we organized Decarcerate Memphis in 2020. And we were able to get that started with its feet and legs. In the midst of all of that, I had an opportunity to come to Atlanta and incubate my project, to incubate Flock. So I was able to be in a different type of position of like learning and listening about Cop City. And I love that because it really speaks to, just because you led a movement in another state, it doesn't necessarily mean that you have to fight to lead a movement in that particular state. Sometimes your role is to listen and learn and support. And that's the role I was in, Cherie, when it came to Cop City here in Atlanta. And I'm so glad I was able to do that. But to answer your question, of course, we have to address the system as a whole. We want to poke as many holes in the system as we can so the consciousness will shift to people asking questions about, what does public safety really mean? What would make you feel safe in your community? How are we policing these communities? What does the end of policing look like? So those are things that I believe, when it comes to movements like Cop City and the lessons that we learn from Cop City, even though some folks feel like we were defeated, it does poke holes at the system, and it creates this consciousness and this base that as folks get older, I really pray that Gen Alpha and Gen Beta will start to look back at us and say, what was wrong with you guys? Why do we even have some of these things in place? Just like us as millennials and maybe Gen X are looking at the boomers and the silent generation, like, why do we even allow this to happen? So that's what it takes for us to keep building movements like this so we can influence other generations of voters and thinkers. I build on the shoulders, to your second question, of abolitionists like Ida B. Wells Barnett. I build on her shoulders because she laid the blueprint and the foundation and forged a path for people like me. So yes, I am an abolitionist in thought, in heart, in spirit, and in soul, especially when it comes to harmful systems like the death penalty system. So yes, I build upon her work. I learn from her. I believe that she guides me through a lot of these movements that I am starting to attach myself to.
So, quick question in terms of in Oklahoma, the governor is, I don't know, I think they officially did it, but I know they were talking about the first cobalt refinery, and so we know the governor is also a Republican. But I'm wondering if you can kind of talk about some statements that they made, the government, about this case, but also, are there people inside, be it Republicans or Democrats, that you feel like have, again, this could be local and it could be the whole state, but you feel have helped the struggle in any kind of way and is advocating for no death in this situation?
Yeah, so I'm a lobbyist, so of course I have insiders everywhere, planted everywhere as I'm counting votes when it comes to the legislative session. But I would encourage people, especially if you're interested in policy, not necessarily politics, but if you're interested in policy, I would say do not declare a party. They're not loyal when it comes to either party. I want to say something else, but they not loyal. So it's super important to never make any permanent enemies or friends, but permanent interest. If you have something you want to advocate for as far as mental health, stay true to that and be able to work across the aisle. Never be in a position that you've called out a party so hard that you can't work with them to actually pass a bill. That's what this is all about. People always ask me that, and I say, I'm for the liberation of my people. What party are you? I'm for the liberation of my people. When you talk about Trump and the Second Chance Act, it did allow a lot of our Black and brothers and sisters to return home. He's done some harmful things, but I'm for the party of my people and the liberation of my people so we can start building there. I know some people have different political interests, but I always say that policy involves talking across the aisle, getting people one on one. You'll be surprised how people think one on one when you talk to them in their office. Anybody can have a meeting with an elected official. Within Flock, I have several frameworks where I instruct people on how to do grassroots lobbying, if that is something that you're interested in, how to write a bill, how to take apart bills that are already there and change them so that they are more equitable and not harmful but helpful. So I always say things like that. I have friends and I have plants and I have people that are in Bible studies that these governors say that they go to. Because one thing that I always say, that even if a politician projects a veneer of faith, you definitely can use that faith-based party and network as a strategy to get some of these laws passed in your state.
Yeah, I think that's the conversation me and Cherie had in the local chapter. And I'm sure you know that people are repulsed by even the word policy. And I'm glad that you clarified there's policy and there's American politics.
Yeah, politics.
Whatever you want to call it. But
policy is just the issue, at hand.
Yep. And it's also like a roadmap for a particular social outcome. And if you can't have conversations like that, then you ain't building no revolution either. Like, what the fuck? Like,
Right.
Where you gonna build? So I'm glad that you made that clear. Cherie.
Yeah, I mean, you're super strategic. I'm just curious as like, your overall organizing background a little. I mean, I know you mentioned a little bit, as far as you were in Memphis, but like what really charged you to like get involved in this? I'm just, curious of how you were able to develop your analysis on how to, be so strategic in getting policies pushed through.
Yeah, I mean, I have a very rich upbringing. My dad is a Baptist pastor, and my mom was a principal for more than 38 years. And my mom introduced me to advocacy and policy when I was about 6 years old, when it came to the South African apartheid movement. So at 6 years old, I had on a shirt that said "Cry Freedom." So where are our movement babies? Are our movement babies out there? Because it is absolutely true. You do need to train up a child in movement spaces, because that's how they begin to develop their identity about morals and values and the way that they think about the world. So I do want to shout out to all the movement babies, because I was a movement baby. But beyond that, I was an English major. I went to LSU. And when I graduated from LSU, I shortly attended University of Memphis for my master's of public policy. So kind of that university upbringing. I also went to Loyola Law in New Orleans. So I have a legalese background as well. But more than that, I am a child of the church. And when you were raised in church, you learn just church operations. You learn how to get annual days together and things like that when it comes to the church. So I always say that God has nestled me in a spot that intersects faith and justice and liberation and power. And my mom and dad, I have to give it to them. They gave me the blueprint. But really, Cherie, through trial and error, I've been a part of many campaigns, not just campaigns in the criminal justice space, but educational campaigns. I don't know if this affected the areas where you all are from, but in Memphis, what happened in probably like the early 2010s throughout the late 2010s is charter schools came in and start infiltrating our low income community schools, and they were changing their name and they were changing their identities, and the principals were now CEOs. So I was very vigilant when it came to making and remaining the community schools remaining the community schools and not being whitewashed by white charter organizations.
Thank you. So I know we are about to wrap, and I want you to make sure that you share any other thing that you want to share about the case, things uh, that you think is extremely important. But I also, right, this is probably unorthodox. I want to make sure that I remind you publicly that I hope that you're taking care of yourself, because this is definitely not no weak shit type work, right? And so maybe along with making acknowledging that you take care of yourself, maybe share some advice for people if they are in this work and the work maybe is not even this tough, um things that they should and could do, and I know that spiritual grounding is probably is there.
Right.
Yeah, we'll go ahead. Sure.
So I look okay, but if you were to do an X-ray on my soul and spirit, you would say, Joy, what is going on? So thank you so much for just that check-in, because I definitely need that. For me, Geechee, I don't get involved in every death penalty case. So Joya personally, and also my organization Flock, we are very tedious and we look through the details of every case before we get into it. And it's because of that very reason. I have to take care of my soul and spirit. So if I'm involved in a case, it's because I absolutely believe in this case and believe that it aligns with my personal identity, morals and values, and also my organization. As I said before, when it comes to this case, we're less than a few hours away from execution. So even if you're coming in on the tail end, I urge you to go to TremaneWoodFoundation.org and learn about who he is. We definitely don't want the inevitable to happen tomorrow morning. So maybe you can learn about who he was, if, whatever happens for tomorrow. But I also encourage you to follow Flock Justice on Instagram and learn about the work that we do, because we give a lot of background as to why we are in this work and the DNA that's involved in the death penalty itself. And you can learn some of these facts for yourself. And it may be some cases in your state that you may want to get involved in, because Flock is interconnected. We are a part of an umbrella of 150 organizations that address the death penalty from different frameworks and different lenses. But if those that are out there that are just doing movement work, period, just my movement sisters and my movement brothers, you have to take time to take care of yourself. You have to eat. I had to encourage some of my organizers today. You have to eat, but not just eat healthy. Don't just grab a McDonald's burger and say that you've eaten, but you definitely need to eat clean, because you need it to replenish yourself and your soul. So you don't want to be, full of all that junky stuff. So that's one thing that's really big. Build a tribe around you. I have an amazing tribe of people that after things like this, I get gift cards to massage places, or they come over and cook my favorite meal. And that just comes with just not shutting everybody out when you're in movement work, but also being in community with people and loving on people and allow people to love on you. And it's also okay to rest and put your phone on do not disturb after campaigns. And you don't have to apologize for it, because if people truly love you, they know what you've been through.
Thank you so much. Cherie, you got anything as we let the good sister go? You know we were gonna be in communication, but definitely we're gonna be pulling on you to do some conversation with people.
Thank you so much. Like that's all I have to say is thank you. Yeah.
Thank you. And thank you to those who are listening out there live, or will listen back or watch it back when it plays. So I truly appreciate you. And I feel like I made some new friends. So
Definitely. So come back anytime, and thank you again for your time and the work that you do.
bye, guys. Thank you.
All right, peace. All right, so low heavy. How you feeling?
That's a lot, I just think of just the overall setup that this system has us in, and how it just really decides who gets to make mistakes and then who doesn't. It's like, yeah, I just think about that, because it's like, when I was young, when I was in high school, I was like stealing from Claire's, and like I remember we would go, we would like take the jewelry, put it on our wrists and walk out, and we would think we were cool or cute or whatever. And then, you know, I think something happened. We were talking about it at school, and like a teacher told my mom, and she was like super disappointed. Like that was like the worst feeling ever, because she just looked at me like I was, you know, the worst person ever for like stealing from Claire's and whatnot. But yeah, that's really all it was. I think I got grounded or whatever. But you know, and so I just think of like little mistakes that you make in life, and it just becomes like a thing for that moment, or a thing between you and your parents or whatever. And then other people who make similar, but I guess in some ways, you know, on the scale of things, maybe larger because of the circumstance. And you know, but it's still like the same naiveness, the same naivete of like, oh, I'm just gonna do this thing or whatever, you know, and just how one bad decision can just like, you know, change the trajectory of your entire life, and how that is just so unfair, because there's so many other people that get to make numerous bad decisions, and you know, and everything's okay. So I don't know. That's why it's just very hard. I think even with this week, and I'm sorry, I know I'm going on, but like even with this weekend, like losing my job and whatnot, like I would always tell people, when people would tell me like, oh, I'm so proud of you, and you know, you got this job and you're stable and all that, I never really fed into that, because I would tell people all the time, like, I'm proud of the work I do, you know, in my organization, the work I do creatively, but I don't, you know, take pride or to get too much into the identity with this job and whatnot, or any job, because I know at any moment it could be taken away, and then, you know, and then what, you know, and because me knowing my, I guess, class or whatever, knowing the things that I have around me, I know if that's taken away, I have community, I have parents, I have all of these other things, or if this happens to somebody else, they have to literally live on the street, you know. And so it's just, you know, I don't know, I think I'm just thinking about all these different things, how like some people get to mess up, and some people get to steal, and some people get to get fired, and it's just, it sucks either way. You still are dealing with the things of the system, but it's just, it's very specific as far as, you know, the level of punishment and dehumanization a person has to experience just because of a mistake, you know. And so, you know, yeah, so that's what I'm thinking about.
Yeah, I think something that I engaged in, and we talked about this before, and maybe we're gonna do a play about it. But I talked to my friend who I had the conversation inbox, and he started out with like, yeah, you know, I know some people still hindered by the legacy of slavery, but not me. And I was like, And then I went into the four responses of hegemony: homicidal, suicidal, assimilationist, and revolutionary or radical response. And when I started explaining a little bit, he was like, oh shit, I'm trying to assimilate into it. He has a, you know, biracial daughter, and he says he's trying to compete with white men at jobs and stuff like that. But a lot of his conversation was disassociating himself with the people. He disassociated himself with the people who are being harmed by racism, and he disassociated himself with me, who he think he's so proud of. I'm so proud of you, man. The work that you do, and I'm like, yo, that's not enough. Like, if you're proud, do it too. Like, it's all of us. We all like that. So there's no really way to not be in one of those categories, right? And so, and there's no way not to be impacted by it, because, you know, I tell this story again. It might be, it's not like your problems, but when Nard was having this conversation around land and stuff like that, and I was trying to tell him about power, he tried to buy some land back at home, and then the white boy doubled it, and then it's like, now you can't pay for it. So even though you got money and you're on TV or whatever, like, if they name the price and the laws, what the fuck you gonna do? So I just think, like, again, that separation thing, it's like, it's, you know, me and Ricky wrote about ignorance is bliss, and it's very similar to that, because it's like, you could act like you're blissfully engaging and it's never going to touch you, but when it touches you, the desperation that you're going to feel is crazy, right? You know, if he wouldn't have talked back in the cops, and then one day you might have to experience that you or somebody you know perfectly comply, bah, then what you gonna do, right? Other than going to this deep despair and, oh, woe is me, like, but it's yeah. So, you know, and then it's hard to, you know, today I was thinking about some internal euphoric stuff, but then I was thinking about like the feelings of going through it, and then how other people might be like trying to do something to break a spirit, right? I immediately think of Mumia, right? Imagine how many guards felt like because they can control Mumia in some capacity, like, I'm gonna do this and I'm gonna cut his lights out earlier. And the peace that Mumia have, even in prison, and the surety he have and the love he have for the people, that shit crazy to me in a positive way. But it's like, imagine to not escape and not deal with the work, but to have a particular peace within the work, right? As John Henry Clark says, people say, you talk about this oppression and all these things. How do you find peace, brother? And John Henry Clark said, I find peace in knowing that I would never see peace because my people are at war. It's a privilege and an honor to understand the material condition that you're in and to know something enough about it to want to fight. So, like, even as people begin to escape, and I was actually talking to the young brothers just now from Morehouse, seven or eight of them, they all DSA. So again, socialism is a conversation on the campus, and they were talking about how the administration and other people are in their mind removed from the problem. And my example was, they're not really removed from the problem. There's a different level of fear that is being expressed that don't look like fear. Example, when a dog is barking at you, you might be afraid of the dog, but the dog is actually scared as shit. And that's why the dog is growling. And it looked like powerful, but it's actually weakness. And so that thing can look differently in these spaces, like Black excellence and circling. You can talk all this shit, but you're really afraid. And you just haven't had a conversation personally one-on-one that a motherfucker make you vulnerable and actually say, like, yeah, I'm scared of shit, bro. I don't know what to do, but I ain't got the money. I like that type of conversation. In order for us to have that, we would have to like tap into that vulnerability. Even with the analysis and the books shit that we don't know, you still gotta admit that your ass vulnerable and you just like the rest of these motherfuckers. So I just think it's that disassociation, and again, waiting for the time or experiencing the time when death come to you and whatever come to you in a more physical and aggressive way as opposed to subtle. I get back to I think that's why we organize. Like, how do you, and kind of like Joia was saying, how do you grapple with all of those people and tactically engage with them to get your overall aim? So again, whether it's policy and working with completely different people, or it's organizing and working with folks who are escapists, who know everything and moving this way, who analysis junkies, whatever it is, like, how do you navigate and work with all those people to kind of get your ultimate game goal? And I just think that was illustrated perfectly in what Joia was talking about in the interview. So I'm grateful that has happened. And I know we don't have a lot of time because we're about to start a chapter PE. So we're gonna wrap up. And if you're in Atlanta and you're in with CMB, I guess you can't come. We got food and it's free. But thank you. Take us home, sign us out, Cherie, and we'll see these beautiful folks later.
All right, y'all. I guess so. We not doing this weekend plans. I'm just saying bye, or like what?
Man, we ain't got time. No,
okay.
You can share.
Okay. Well, yeah, I'm just saying we do have a in-house meeting that it's been my first time leading one because I'm now in a leadership in CMB. So we have that on Saturday. And other than that, hit your girl up if y'all know about some remote job leads or what. Anything quick with you, Geechee?
Nah, I'm just traveling this weekend. I won't be there. I got to take care of some family business. Still working through some stuff, but yeah.
Got you. All right, y'all. In the words of the great Fred Hampton, peace if you're willing to fight for it. Bye.
See you soon.